William Patterson Broadcast Network, Brave New Radio.
Hi, we're Pescadora.
Hey, this is Alexandra Kelly.
Yo, we're talking to plants.
I'm Secret Mountain.
Hey, we're Have a Good Season.
Hi, we're Everything Ever. And
hey,
we're
the Swam.
Hey, we're Ashes Terrain. You listen to
WP
88.7
Brave New Radio.
Are you brave enough?
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. And yes, believe it or not, it is Saturday once again, and we are together again. Seems like we were just here, and believe it or not, we are together again. I say that every Saturday morning because time just seems like it is sailing. And I guess it's, you know, they say we don't lose time, or some kind of quote I saw about time earlier this week, about how we don't lose time or something along those times. But I know one thing, it is flying. It is going quickly. Seems like we were just sitting behind this microphone, and I only come on the air once a week, but you would think I was on 7 days a week as quick as we come in. But in any event, this is your host, Marc Medley, and we are here on Saturday mornings from 6 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. live, and then we follow up with the gospel music, the good news and song from 7 to 9, unless we kind of alter things because we've double or triple booked guests. But I am thrilled because everything right now is doing what it's supposed to do in terms of the equipment. My guest is on the line in the wings waiting, so we're going to go ahead and get started as we always do. I'm going to give you the weather. I'm going to read from our two opening selections, our books, and then I'm going to introduce our guest, and we will be underway with our interview. So you let somebody know that we are on the air. Get on all your social media sites and tell them to tune in to gobrave.org right now. Matter of fact, don't even tell them why. Just text somebody, get on your social media sites, and just say, you know what, turn on your computer and go to gobrave.org and turn your speakers on and lay back and chill out and listen. And you'll be glad that you did. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to give you the weather of what's going on in the New Jersey area right now. It's 59.4 degrees, even though it may feel like 59.2. Okay, the 2-degree difference. All right, but in any event, it is 59.4 degrees. Expected to be sunny to partly cloudy, moving to a high of 86. And then Sunday, or tonight rather, partly cloudy skies, a low of 52. And then tomorrow, it's Sunday, partly cloudy skies, high around 85, dropping to a low of 62. On Monday, sunshine and clouds mixed, high of 84. Monday night, partly cloudy in the evening, then becoming foggy with periods of light rain after midnight, low of 67. And then as we roll on into Tuesday, expect intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 86, dropping to a low of 71. Partly cloudy Tuesday night as well. Wednesday, we're going to remain partly cloudy with thunderstorms becoming likely during the afternoon, high of 88. Wednesday night, still variably cloudy and dropping to a low of 69. Well, that is the weather as we have it forecast for the moment. Equipped yourself accordingly to stay whichever it is temperature that you want to stay. If you want to stay cool, equip yourself to stay cool. If you want to stay hot and warm, equip yourself to stay warm. If you want to be wet, then don't take your umbrella. On and on and on. But that is the weather so that you can kind of prepare and plan. Brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. It is time to read from our two books. One is What Can Happen When We Pray, and the other is Until Today. And they are daily perpetuals, meaning they have no year associated with them. They only have a date. So for today, June the 28th, It says, like shelter in a storm. Today's prayer. Keep us safe, O Lord, our strength. I know that's right. Hide us in the cleft of the rock. Give us the shelter from the storms of life. Now, I needed to hear that already. Give us shelter from the storm, because every now and again we go into storms. If you're not in a storm, you're either in one, coming out of one, or going into one. So it says, give us shelter from the storms of life. Summer showers invite us to get wet. I was just talking about it. We may shed umbrellas and turn our faces up to the rain. We feel refreshed and rejuvenated. Summer storms are different. The wind whips and roars like an angry lion. Lightning flashes. The earth and the heavens shake. Then the sky splits open and water pours forth. Summer storms make us run for shelter. Some rain, same rain, different experience. God is like that. God is a formidable enemy to the foes of God's people. All right, watch out now. Desolation and famine are arrows in God's quiver used to defeat wickedness. On the other hand, God's people are nourished with sweet wine and flowing milk. God is like a summer storm to the wicked. God is refuge and refreshment for his people. Let us turn our faces toward God. That's for today, June the 28th, out of the book, What Can Happen When We Pray, from the book by Iyanla Van Zandt. Until today, for June 28th, she says, I am now willing to forgive myself for refusing to acknowledge what my life is showing me about myself. Your life is a reflection of you. Everything that is coming at you from out there is coming to show you where work is required on yourself. As you shake your head no and point at all the people you can blame for what is going on with you, you miss another divine opportunity to examine what is really going on within you. Until you are willing to accept total and complete responsibility for every aspect of your life will keep sending you experiences designed to get your attention. It can be difficult to acknowledge your role in the annoying little messes and great big disasters in your life. No one likes to take the blame. Quite often we confuse accepting responsibility for bearing the blame. When you are the one to blame, it means you are somehow at fault and must be punished. To avoid punishment, we look for someone else to put the blame on. In doing so, we miss an opportunity for self-correction. Rather than looking for who is to blame, think about who is responsible. Accepting responsibility means examining the choices made. A choice is usually made in reaction or response to some sort of stimulation. The outcome reveals what kind of choice was made. When you are trying to escape blame and punishment, the outcome will lead you to speak about others. When you are willing to accept responsibility for your choices, the outcome leads you to self-evaluation and self-correction. Until today, you may have believed that if you were to blame, you would be punished. Just for today, take blame out of the life evaluation equation. Honestly examine the situations in your life about which you are not pleased. Forgive yourself for not accepting your full share of a responsibility. Put yourself in the center of your life and accept full responsibility for all things that may be spinning out of control. Today I am devoted to acknowledging my responsibility for every aspect of my life. Now, you know what? I'm going to share this one with my teaching staff. With the teaching staff at my school, they're going to get a copy of this one. And I think my parents and students may get a copy of it as well, because we be doing a whole lot of he, she, and they. In other words, putting the blame on. I tell everybody in my school, he, she, and they are famous. It's never me. It's always he, she, and they, but I'll get into that another time. My guest is on the line, and I am thrilled to have her here. Social media is a wonderful blessing if you use it correctly. In terms of meeting people, and I know for me, for the show, in terms of me being able to get my guests, it has been a godsend. And once again, I connected with this young lady through social media. As a matter of fact, I think we initially connected on the About Me site, and then it moved on into Twitter and email and everything else. But my guest this morning is Kamaria Tanya Richmond. Kamaria T. Richmond, lifestyle blogger and the 2011 Digital Sisterhood Network's blogger in residence. Richmond hosts, she's a host as well of a radio show, the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show, a monthly radio show on TalkShoe Radio. That's www.talkshoe. That's like SHOE.com. The Stroke Diva Fabulous Show celebrates life after her 2004 stroke. Now, that's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and as we go into the conversation, I'll tell you why. Her show discusses her passions as a lifestyle blogger. They include spirituality, healthy living, lifestyle reinvention, the arts, music, current issues, popular culture, fashion, beauty, travel, gourmet food, wine, home decor, and so much more. Kamaria has a blog, but she's also in the process of writing a book, and her book is going to go into some of her experiences after having suffered a stroke, as it said here, life after her stroke in 2004. So let somebody know that Kamaria is on the air. Kamaria, I love that name. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Mark. I am well. All is well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for rising early to appear. And I tell you, I love the name, the Kamaria, because, well, one, my oldest daughter, her name is Aria. So the last four letters of your name is her name, Aria. So it sounds very similar. So when I first saw that, that caught my attention. I said, that's a pretty name, Kamaria. And then as we started going back and forth chatting and I saw what you were up to in terms of, you know, your writing work, I said, oh, I got to have her on the show. And then whenever I saw your tweet that was saying the possibility of being on the show, I said, well, I'm definitely going to have her on the show. So, all right, we're going to take a very short information sharing time where I'm going to let some folks know about some things. And then when we come back, we're going to get along with our interview. So again, those of you who are listening and can hear the sound of my voice, let somebody know that Kamaria Tanya Richmond is on the air with me. All they have to do is tune in to gobrave.org.
Think carrying 10 or 20 pounds of extra weight isn't much? We went to a park, handed 10 and 20-pound sandbags to people aged 45 to 60, and asked if we could follow them around.
10 pounds makes a big difference. Oh, I definitely felt it in my knees.
A few extra pounds each year can cause joint pain and lead to serious chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. Wouldn't you like to drop that weight and stop picking up more? Visit hhs.gov/1 pound at a time to find out how. Obesity happens 1 pound at a time. So does preventing it. Brought to you by HHS and NIH.
Hey, parents of children with asthma, here's another hit from the Breathe Easies.
Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke around the kids in the house. Don't smoke in the car. Don't smoke in the house. Don't break my heart with your secondhand smoke in the kids who can trigger the asthma.
Preventing asthma attacks can be as simple as making your home and car smoke-free zones. For more Breathe Easy tips to help stop asthma attacks, go to noattacks.org. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
This is correct. You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley, and my guest this morning is Kamaria T. Richmond. All right, Kamaria. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about how you began writing, and let's talk a little bit about kind of like the whole thing that kind of like your writing is now centering around, particularly the subject matter of your book, or at least one of the topics in your book in terms of having a stroke. So, did you write prior to the stroke, or as a child, or in high school, or in your job, or what have you? Were you writing or blogging prior to?
I've always been an avid reader
and
a writer. So this is great for me, trying to put my thoughts together in a book to share my story with others.
Now, I'm looking at your photos. I've seen your photos, and you do not look like a 100-year-old person. and and what I mean by that is whenever we start talking strokes, many times people always associate either stroke or heart attack or something of that nature with older age, and that's not necessarily the case. And 2004, that was 10 years ago. So if I'm looking at your picture here, now we can roll the clock back even. That means you were even 10 years younger at that point. Talk a little bit about, you know, what happened there and then we're going to move into what life has been like since then and what you have to do and so forth and so on.
Great. The story is I was 37 when I had my stroke, and the doctors did several tests. They've never found an answer, where it came from. And the year was 2004. And I had been sick a lot in 2004. And it started in January with the thyroid. And then a few months later, they didn't know if I had lupus or tuberculosis. It was actually sarcoidosis. And if anyone knows about that disease, it's an autoimmune disease.
Oh,
and
I do.
Yeah,
you said psychosis, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my father had that.
Oh, my goodness. So you know about
I'm very familiar with that. Matter of fact, he died early. He died young, and I'm sure that contributed to it. He had a massive heart attack 1 week before his 49th birthday. And that was back in 1985. So, and he had that. I always remember as a kid him struggling with that, and he didn't say anything about it, but that's ultimately what it was. But yeah, go ahead. You were explaining what that disease is, so talk a little bit about that. This is going to be an enlightening and informative show this morning. It's going to be an educational show for sure, because this health issue is no joke. And that's another thing that caught my eye when Kamaria, when I read her bio and everything, and what her show is about, this whole issue of health. And you heard her just say she was 37 at the time. I told you, she does not look like she was 100, didn't look like she was even 50. And I was right. I was right on point. She was 37. So I didn't want to interrupt you. When you said sarcoidosis, my father had that.
That is amazing. And it really is a life-changing event or disease. I started with, I was having trouble breathing, and then I started having trouble kind of walking, and then there was something going on with my eyesight. And I was like, so I went to, doctor to doctor to doctor, and no one knew what it was, because 10 years ago, no one was really talking about sarcoidosis. Even now, when I go to a doctor, they don't even know about sarcoidosis.
I'm not surprised.
And it's really enlightening, but thank goodness I've had great doctors and great therapists that have really, through me, really, learned how to spot it and be able to describe it to me and to others. So it can be quite painful, and there's a lot of medication to take to keep it under wraps.
Wow.
But it goes in remission, and then it comes back out. So it's kind of like a back and forth kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, it's serious. So it's really hard to diagnose, which is why they thought I had lupus or tuberculosis. They kind of have to go through every symptom of your body to rule that out. And once they rule that out, they come up with sarcoidosis. So typically it's for someone like African Americans and Eastern European women, which is interesting, who it affects. And now, we're hearing like a lot of celebrities, coming out and say, oh, I have sarcoidosis.
Right.
It's definitely, being discussed. So that may have, been the deal with my stroke. Again, the doctors really could not find a reason. I know personally that I was working a lot, I was traveling a lot, and I was really tired. And so being active, I'm like, okay, something is not right. And it turned out to be that. So once that whole year, so I was in 2004, and so by, August or September, I was barely walking, and I stopped working, and I thought to myself, well, I'm so tired, I'll just take a couple months off and then go back in January and go back to work. Where? I had no idea. But I was like, I'll go back to work in January. And my symptoms just got worse, and so the few days after Thanksgiving, I had the stroke. And I was unconscious for about 18 hours. The saving grace is that my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother, we talked every night. And during that week, I had tests for the whole week. And so I went to, like I said, I'm not a morning person. So I woke up Saturday morning, and I had the worst headache of my life. And I was like, okay, I have to go to the emergency room because this is not normal.
Right.
And, I mean, when I say the worst headache ever, that's like a sign for someone to immediately go to the emergency room. And while I was there, I didn't even realize I had passed out. I just woke up, and they told me I had migraines. And it wasn't until later that I found out, okay, I was vomiting. I was talking about how I couldn't see, all of that. But I had no idea until I saw my records, you know, a few months later. And so, and now they're at this point where if someone is young, they come in, you need to start checking for the signs of a stroke.
Absolutely.
Right. And so by not answering the phone that evening, everyone knew I was sick and everyone knew something was wrong. And it had been 18 hours and no one could get a hold of me. And I was conscious when the policeman knocked the door down through my apartment. And I saw these men. I'm like, what are they doing? I'm like, am I naked? What is going on?
Right.
So my mind was still processing, and I see that my aunt's crying. So I'm processing like, well, what is it? What is going on? And so I'm a night owl, and what had happened was that night, about 4 a.m., I went to send an email to a friend. So with the email, I could not write. I could not read. And I said, well, I am really tired. I need to, you know, take my butt to bed. And I had watched a movie with Denzel Washington. And so all of that I remember completely. The next thing I know when I wake up, well, everything is pretty much a blur once I woke up. So my mom had been out of town, so she, you know, drove back in the state quickly, and you know, she is a go-to gal, so she, you know, got on the stick with the hospital because they really had just left me. You know, I was just there, and no one had done anything. And when I looked up again, I saw my rheumatologist, and she was stroking my face. And so I'm like, well, what is going on with Dr. Braxton? What is she, you know, what is she doing? And so I'm just kind of, I'm having the conversation in my head, but nothing makes any sense.
Right.
So that story, and I'm blessed. I mean, I am seriously blessed to be able to talk to you today because I have learned how to walk and talk and read and write again. And I suffer now. I shouldn't say suffer. I still have cognitive challenges. And so I've had a lot of therapy. I've had speech therapy, occupational therapy, eye therapy, occupational therapy. And the key to really getting well, and this is part of, you know, my journey, part of my therapy, is that you have to have a patient's advocate, which is my mom. And I know how important it is to have good health insurance. And we were always in the right place at the right time. And so people and my doctors could suggest different programs. And so if you don't have anyone, you know, looking out for you that way, then I know how a lot of people end up in a really bad situation.
Correct.
So, yeah, so many programs, and people just helped along the way. I have great family, I have great friends. And the people that I'm meeting online that's from the stroke and me trying to kind of reinvent myself and kind of get myself back out there because I'm not out all the time. So social media has really been helpful for me.
Well, as I said earlier, I mean, unfortunately, like with anything else, we have folks who abuse something that's meant for good. And social media, for me, as I said, and the funny thing, Kamaria, when it first came out, Facebook and all those different things. I just thought it was something for the kids, and I was like, I don't have no time for that. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, I can use that for my radio show in terms of putting the word out about it and attracting people to appear. And so I've used it like that for the last few years, and it's been great. But I'm listening to you because I had the microphone off, and I'm just listening to your story. And I don't know, for some reason, the older I get now, and I know if my mother's listening, she is going to bust out laughing. But the older I get, the easier I am to cry, or the easier I am to tear up, or easier I am to get the knot in my throat. And I'm listening to you tell your story, and I'm beginning to get like a lump in my throat in terms of like almost wanting to cry and tear up. And at the same time, I'm so happy for you to listen to you, because anyone listening to you would not know if we didn't tell them that you have suffered a stroke. Now, I said in the early part of whenever we first came on, that it is a topic that's near and dear to my heart for a couple of reasons. And then when you introduced the psychodosis, I'm like, oh, wow, this is really one of those divine type interventions here in terms of this happening for a reason. Yeah. The body is an amazing thing. And the older you get, the more you realize that. And I'm a little bit older than you. Actually, I'm about 5, 6 years older than you based on what you're saying. The stroke was 37, so that would make you about 47, 48 now. I'll be 52 in August. And on my mother's side, diabetes runs rampant. I mean, it's like she's had it, her mother's had it, my aunts have it, my uncles have it, I have cousins that have it. And the last time I went for my physical, my doctor looked at what they call the A1C numbers, and she said, those numbers are not looking good. You're headed that way, but we're going to see if we can head it off. So if you do a change in your diet, you do more exercise, do some lifestyle changes, we'll see if we can keep you off medication. And that's what I've been doing now since February. And I lost a whole bunch of weight because of now no sugar and no carbs and this, that, and the other. But I can begin to feel some of the effects of what's going through. And it gave me a real good appreciation for what my mom has been going through for the last 30-some years. And I'm nowhere near close to the things that she's gone through. But to hear you say that I suffered a stroke at 37, and I was up and vibrant. And the reason the stroke thing hits me, because my grandmother, my mother's mother, a part of the diabetes, she died young in her 60s, 61, 62, 63, somewhere up in there, from a stroke. She had a stroke and never really kind of fully recovered. And, she was of an older age and, she went on. But this health thing is no joke. And you said something very significant about health care, because the first question they ask, regardless of what situation you're in, is show me your insurance card.
Yes.
And the other reason why the stroke issue and why I'm very compassionate about this whole issue, because my aunt, my mother's sister, suffered a horrific, back around 2000, accident in Houston, Texas, where they were riding one of the horse and buggy rides. And the horse literally went wild. It went crazy. The driver lost control of the horse. No one on the buggy could control it. And the buggy slammed into a brick wall on the side that my aunt was sitting in. And she had the same almost exact effect, because her head hit the wall, of might as well have been a stroke or even worse. And she had to do the exact same thing you're doing. She had to learn to read again, talk again, walk again, the whole nine. So when you were sharing that, all those different emotions were coming back up through me. Because just dealing with this whole thing of diet change and lifestyle changes to try to stay away from diabetes medication is, like, for me, a challenge. And I'm doing it because I'm disciplined, but to have to go through relearning how to read, relearning how to write, trouble with processing, I just can't imagine what that must be like, especially for somebody of such a young age.
Right, and it's just been a process, and I've just kept a positive attitude because, I have family members that have had a stroke, don't have great health care, and so it's really, really hard for them. But I had great health care. I have my family and my friends, and like I said, wonderful doctors. And along the way, I had wonderful therapists. And so, that kind of gives me a leg up because, people just don't always have that. And so we're not going to even go into Obamacare, but, you really do need something like that, a really strong oh my goodness, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, I know exactly. You have really strong health care. I know. And for those of you in the listening audience, again, I know exactly from talking with Kamaria how these, because when I talk to my aunt, we go through the same. So that's why I was telling you earlier, it doesn't faze me whatsoever. And understanding what it is, anytime you deal with anything neurological, anytime you deal with anything that impacts the brain, yeah, that could occur. So those of us who deal with that, it's not an issue, because literally as you're trying to talk or whatever, your brain may lapse. And when it does that, it's kind of like, because when I talk to my aunt, it's the same thing. And so it just does not faze me. So for those of you in the listening audience, if this occurs during the interview, which I mean, just listening to you talk, I don't think that's going to occur much. Yeah, because you've been very fluid. You've been able to get your ideas right out with no. That's what I'm saying. Listening to you, if we didn't tell people, they would not know that you had suffered with a stroke. They really wouldn't. And I'm being straight up honest with you.
That's great. I mean, of course, last night I was writing out all these different questions, and then I kept looking. I'm like, oh, my God, does that make sense? You know, just kind of whole process, that whole thing. But to get back on social media, and thank you for sharing your story with your family, because it's like you have kindred spirits.
Oh, for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, you've been very compassionate, and so I really do appreciate that. But after the stroke, so I spent, a couple of years doing all of my therapies, and I still have a lot of therapy. And my radio show is also like my therapy. I was with a friend, and her name is Ananda Leek, and she has the Digital Sisterhood Network. I was staying with her on a weekend, and I said, I want to go to like a blogger conference. Like, what do I have to do? And she was like, okay, there's one conference you have to go to, and it's called Be Blogalicious. And for that, she's like, don't spend your own money. Ask people for donations. And so that's what I did to go to this conference. Luckily, it was in D.C. that year, and that's what I did. I sent out everything I could to my network, and people sent money so that I could attend the conference. So I have been truly, truly blessed. And through the conference, I was like, okay, social media does work. Because years ago when she was doing Facebook, I'm like you, yeah, right, I don't have time for that.
Right.
I'm like, that's too much information, too many people, and, it's just a fad.
That's right. I felt the same way.
Yeah, and now we have to live with it. And so now I'm on a lot of social media sites, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge for me to do a bio. It's a challenge to learn how to, work all the different systems and all the different stuff you have to do to go online. But I take it because it's part of my therapy. So with being at that conference, I thought, okay, this is great. So she developed a program, and it's called the Digital Sisterhood Blogger in Residence. And she said, Kamaria, you have to get back out there. And she said, there's a lot that you can still do. And so she developed this program, which I did it for a year. So this is how I got to the Stroke Diva Fabulous show. And so I was on her show. Well, actually, she did my show. She was like the producer for a year. And so she got me into feeling comfortable about talking to people, because I would meet someone online, and I go, wow, that's really neat what you do. And so I would just send out, a post, I would like to have you on my show. And so, of course, that's helped me expand my horizons. So when it comes to cognitive ability, my guests are really patient, really kind, and so it makes the process flow. And so after the year, she's like, okay, it's your baby now. And so I've been doing it by myself, I guess, for 3 years.
All
and
right.
It's called the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show, because I had a stroke.
Right.
But I still have a little diva left, I think. And so she's like, you should celebrate that. And so she came up with the title. And it's been working ever since. And so, like you said, with social media, I'm able to reach out to you. So people I wouldn't meet, on the street, you connect with people online.
Correct.
And that's the only way to connect with people if you're not going out all the time.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, if you've just joined us, and I truly hope you've been with us since 6 o'clock, my guest is Kamaria T. Richmond, and we're talking about, her blog. Secondly, we're talking about some of her health challenges and how that contributes to the blog and how it is also contributing to her upcoming book. She is in the process of writing a book. Now, let me tell you why this is a miraculous story. Those of you listening that you know of anything in terms of neurological health challenges, you heard her say she had to go back again and learn how to read, write, walk, see. She had to relearn all that, and yet we're sitting here talking about she's in the process of writing a book. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that is an inspirational story. That is now I don't know what faith or what you believe in or don't believe in, or whatever, but for me, that is a praise report, as they call it. That is something worthy of for me, it's thank God. I don't know for anybody else because this is not church. This is not, but I can just give you my personal. That is some story that we're talking about this morning. And I need you to let somebody know that Kamaria is on the line with me, and she's sharing her experiences of how she's a young, vibrant young woman that suffered a health challenge 10 years ago, and she's still positive and making the best of it. Now, she's thanking her support system, and there's no question you got to have that, but a lot of it is mindset in terms of positive attitude as well. We're going to share some more information with you while you're doing that. Please do the same thing that I'm going to do, because Kamaria, when I'm on the air, I'm also online. So I'm on Hootsuite. I'm sending stuff out that'll go out to my Facebook page, my LinkedIn page, my Google Plus page, my Twitter sites. I'm doing all that. I'm constantly encouraging people, get on the air and listen to this. So those of you listening, please do the same thing all throughout the show, as well as while I'm sharing this information with you. We're not going anywhere. Let somebody know that Kamaria is on the air with me.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't seen your lap in months. And even more stuff. But still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, my name is Stan Myers, and I'm here at FM 88.7. I do a jazz show called Just a Mood. And if you like the music, anything from Louis to Lester Bowie, I'm your man. That's Sunday afternoons, 3 to 6. Looking to hear from you, okay?
Brave New Radio. We're braver than taking an 8 a.m. class on a Saturday.
We're braver than getting a tattoo of Justin Bieber's face on your face.
We're braver than hang gliding in a lightning storm.
So tune in to WP 88.7 Brave New Radio. Are you brave enough?
Well, I tell you what, clearly we're brave enough, because the first one I think he said was taking an 8 a.m. class on a Saturday morning. Well, I tell you what, we'd be in a 6 o'clock a.m. class on a Saturday morning. So I guess we're brave enough.
Actually.
Really? He's at an 8 a.m. class on a Saturday morning. We're here at 6. But Kamaria, again, I'm trying to stay away from the word enjoy, but I am enjoying, but I'm being, again, truly inspired and uplifted by listening, because I see me personally, and I've never had a lot of patience. For me, whatever it is I want it now. And when I don't get it, I start getting frustrated. And my mother always tells the story about whenever I was like 3 or 4 years old, she would hear me back in the kitchen playing with my little trucks and everything, and all she could hear coming out of the kitchen was, come on, come on. And I'll be 52 in August, and I'm still going, come on. And where I'm going with this is, like, anytime I get a cold or a health challenge or anything like that, when my body's not doing what it's supposed to do, I'm trying to get it back to do what it's supposed to do immediately. And again, this whole thing of trying to stay out of the diabetic realm, my doctor's really trying, and I'm trying as well, but we don't know if we're going to be able to do it. But we're staying positive. But even that is kind of like from a patient's perspective, like for me, trying to like get my body back to what I want it to be and know it can be. So where I'm going with this is I say the same thing in terms of my aunt and other folks who've suffered, and I know some of my friends who've had various ongoing health challenges. Is like, what is that like to have to just constantly know I'm trying to get back to something I had? Or do you ever just say, you know what, I'm dealing with it the way it is, and I do what I can do with what I have. I do the best I can with what I have.
Well, I do need to do the best that I can. But, that's a work in process by itself. But once I started with the thyroid, I started gaining weight. And then by the time the sarcoidosis came in, I was on prednisone, and so I just blew up. And I hadn't had chicken in like 14 years.
Wow.
All of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm going to have some chicken.
I know that's right.
I'm going to have some chicken. Okay, I'm going to have some turkey. And of course, I love salmon. But I was like, okay, but like beef or pork, that I could not. I became like a vegetarian in the 90s. And so I couldn't go back to that. But I was like, I know I can always get some chicken.
I know that's right. And for anybody out there, if your doctor or your health challenge has ever restricted you from what you can or cannot eat, sometimes you do get to that point. You know what? I'm just going to I'll have to suffer the consequences after, but I'm going to have just a little bit of this.
Exactly. And so I've been dealing with that for the last 10 years because I have a lot of, not just a lot of medication, but a lot of emotion, So keeping my diet and weight, it's like, a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, I could do better. I could really help myself.
I'm laughing because I know, and I've just begun the journey. So when I said, my mom has had diabetes for like 30 plus years now, and she's made it look very easy. I had no idea diabetes is as destructive as it is until I started researching it. Because now, whenever I'm possibly faced with it, I said, well, let me learn all I can about it. And as I started researching it and doing it, I had no clue of how destructive that particular disease is. So, and I know, so either you make the lifestyle changes or you deal with the ultimate consequences. So that kind of encouraging me to stay true as I can. But now, in terms of like now having to relearn how to read and write, because you're doing a radio show. Oh, wait a minute, read, write, and speak, and you're doing everything now that requires reading, writing, and speaking. You're doing a radio show, which requires speaking, reading, and writing. You're doing a blog, which requires reading and writing. And now you're writing a book, which requires reading and writing. How is that for you? What is that like for you, based on the fact that you had to relearn all of that?
It's been challenging. And so I never did write well anyway, but the reading part, and I still have challenges with that, but my major was radio, television, and film. And so that I had to process, okay, that's what I used to do. And I can still do something like that, but I do it differently. So learning how to read. it was through my therapist. Like, I had to learn how to write checks again. I had to learn how to go to the grocery store again.
Wow.
And all of that requires reading.
That's right.
And so it's just something that I have to keep working at it. And when you've been someone that, reads a lot and you've read a lot, it's definitely more challenging when you just kind of have to, okay, like it never happened. Like I just had never learned how to do that.
Wow. And see, again, I relate so much, like you said, kindred spirits. Matter of fact, whenever we get offline, whenever I email you, either we talk to each other, I'm going to actually give you my aunt's time. I'm hook you two together. Because I think you two would have some rich conversation in terms of experiences. Her name is Princess Gardner, and she's in Houston, Texas. And I know when we get offline, I'm going to let her know that I'm sharing her number with you and vice versa. Because I think you two would be able to seriously relate, because she had to go through the exact same thing. She had just, I think maybe a year prior to the accident, had just finished her master's degree down at American University or George Washington University, one of those down in Washington. She had just finished the program. They had relocated to Houston, Texas. She was working in the college down there when the accident occurred. And she had literally the same things you just described about how to write a check again, to go to, the exact same things you just described is exactly what she went through. And that, I'm sitting here like amazed in terms of the comeback. And then to be able to do blogs and to be able to do radio shows. And still, even though you're admitting it's a challenge, but you're still doing it.
Right. And I just look at it, like this way. Okay, it is what it is. I can make the best of it. I can't go back. So.
But for some people, that would be it. That, you know what? They would stay in that pity party. I ain't doing nothing else. This is my lot, and I'm going to lay here on the couch and maybe or maybe not watch television.
Right.
So I'm telling you, the reason this interview is exciting me so much is because it is an inspirational story, because a lot of people, that would have taken them out.
Right.
The fact that you had the stroke, or the fact, and again, and I'm not saying an 80-year-old wants to suffer through that, but when you get into those 85, 90s, 100s, it's like, okay, that kind of comes along with the game. When you're 37, you're not expecting that in the game.
Not at all. And so it just, really kind of threw me a loop. But, as I had shared earlier, a lot of that was, stress from work, really tired, traveling a lot. People were really getting on my nerves. Okay, I just can't take it anymore. I just need, that mental state I know also had to do with the stroke. I know that for sure, just personally. Just knowing that I was stressed and just like, okay, like I've had enough. I just need to stop, get myself together, and then start again and, the next year. And so, it's just, I just have to keep going. And the thing I'm grateful for is that I had the Digital Sisterhood Network. And through that, I started my radio show. And so I do that now once a month. It's typically the last Monday of each month from 7 to 7:45 p.m. And it's therapy because I have to actually connect with people. And, that was something I was used to doing anyway, so it was okay for me. I didn't really have to be nervous about it, connecting with people that way and, sharing my story and wanting to share their story. And it has been, I just call it all a journey. And so, like we were talking about before, social media really, really helps. And that's kind of, my outlet.
So in terms of writing the book, now to kind of fill us in, how is that going in terms, because you've been blogging, but now publishing or in the process of writing a book, has it been any different? And then tell us a little bit about what the book is going to be about. Don't give the end away, don't give too much, because we want to whet folks' appetite. We want them to buy the book whenever it's ready. But kind of like, what is that about, and where is it going, and how has that been for you?
Well, it has been very therapeutic. Everything really is all about therapy for me.
Right.
And the working title, which of course is through my friend in the Digital Sisterhood Network, it's called The Stroke Diva Fabulous, and how social media inspired a woman living with the stroke and sarcoidosis and all of that. And so she really gave me an outline on this is how you write a book. This is what you need to do. And so by giving me that information, I'm able to write the book. And because she has asked so many probing questions, I really have to stop and think, okay, this happened, when did it happen? I have to go back through notes. Okay, what was the year? What was the day? What was the month? What actually happened? Where am I going? So I've really had to ask myself a lot of questions to really dig deep on what it is I want to talk about. And so that's been, like I said, it's still a little challenging. And I actually started working on it, and I took like a break. And now I've been inspired to do it again. And so hopefully I can do it. It'll be an ebook, and hopefully I can do it like the spring or fall of 2015. And so the whole process of, okay, I really have to read, I really have to write, I need to be concise. All of that as a writer, so I call myself a soon-to-be author, takes work. And so having that network, it's very centered on exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And like I said, the here, the why, the if, how, all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm basically just talking about the health challenge and how social media has really helped me kind of spring out of the open. And I think it's something, a story, to share. And it's something that I can share with other people. So like you're talking about your family members, which I really appreciate you talking about that, because unless you've actually gone through it, you don't really understand the process that it takes for someone to really start over. It's like you can say, wow, that was really bad, and because I look okay, people just assume that I'm okay.
That's right. And that's what I say. If you were to look at your picture on your website and so on, no one, unless you told them, would know.
Right. And so, again, and you know what? It is God. It is all God. And so I wanted to share that in a book. And so, the whole process of writing, it's, I'm kind of trying to get back in the swing of it, but having a specific outline. And it's the same thing I do in my radio show. I have someone, okay, send me like 3 questions that people really want to hear about. And so it's kind of like that, asking myself 3 big questions. Okay, what is it I really want people to know, and what I want to talk about? And so that's kind of that process. And it was so great when we connected, and I'm like, okay, I'm working on a book. I don't have a book yet. Oh my God, what am I going to talk?
No, because this is great, because of course when the book is done, I'm going to have you back on, because folks always, I remember when she was talking about when she was writing it, but I am again so inspired, encouraged, because see, again, when I'm not doing this, I'm the principal of a school, and being the principal of a school is not much different from being the pastor of a church or the president of the United States or whatever. You're in a leadership role, and no matter what happens, you get blamed for it.
Right.
So it's like no matter what goes down in my school, good or bad, which unfortunately at this moment is more bad than good, we get blamed for it. And sometimes, even though we go along smiling and carrying on, sometimes it gets difficult. I can understand what President Obama is going through. When you got folks talking about we're going to sue you and all this kind of, he has to put on a front, but I know deep down some of this nonsense gets to him, because I know some of the nonsense that I go through with people blaming me for everything gets to me. So where I'm going with this is, talking to you this morning has encouraged me and inspired me to go on a little further, because my thinking is if Kamaria can do it, I can do it. And so that's why, your story is so important, because for those of us who are dealing with health challenges or life challenges, that's why that reading this morning was so important about God covering us through the storm, shelters in the storm. I said, I needed to read that one this morning. I think every Saturday morning, whichever one I have, is just so fitting. Today's was like shelter in a storm, and I'm going to read that again. And then when I followed up with Iyanla's words, they just fit. And now listening to you, all of it is coming together. So I definitely, when the book comes out, because it is an inspirational story, because I'm still sitting here with mouth dropped open that you've come from a stroke to writing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really am, because, like I said, there are many. The stroke would have been it. I mean, the fact that you're fighting back, and you know what? I majored in journalism and TV and radio. It's like the health issues are interesting, because a lot of times they wipe out the very things that you love. Like for me, I was never a big person. I was never like my sister's always been heavier than me. I always said if I had her size, I would have played football, but I've always been thin to begin with. So for me to start losing weight, but I always still love my sweets, and I had to have like a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi or RC or something every day. Doctor straight up said that stops. I went in I have my coffee Haagen-Dazs ice cream every day or so. That stops. What you call it? Everything that I love to eat as far as junk food was cut totally out. So to listen now, and I love to read. I mean, reading is like my passion. And there's this crazy episode on The Twilight Zone where it was this man who loved to read. And I mean, that was his passion. And the world, for the most part, almost came to an end, where it was this like horror disaster, where for the most part, he was the last person left on the earth.
Wow.
And he was so excited because he said, well, nobody else is here, so I can read as long and as much as I want. And what was left was the library. Out of all the buildings that stayed up, the library was still there. He had all his books. There was one issue. Just as he was about to go into the library to get his first book, he dropped his glasses and they broke and he couldn't see. That was the Twilight Zone episode. It was like, it was crazy. It was like,
crazy.
He now had all these books and all this time, nobody to disturb him, and now he couldn't read because he couldn't see. And so that's what some of these diseases and health challenges are like. They wipe out the very thing that you love the most.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. How did this happen? And where did this happen?
That's right.
And it's crazy. And because that was my major, I was actually just connected with a gentleman who has his own TV show. And so I was on his show, and then I said, you know what, Mr. Brown, I want to be a volunteer. And so through that, slowly but surely, I'm trying to work the camera a little bit, kind of look at what's going on in the control room. And I was like, oh, my God, I'm so excited, even if I'm just, the camera just, turning it to the left, turning it to the right. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm actually panning. Oh, goodness.
Right.
I got to zoom in and zoom out. So it's called The Ed Brown Show, and he's really a wonderful man. It's all about helping others. And that's what I want the book to be. That's, I want my story to be, because if someone helps you, then you have to help someone else.
Absolutely correct. And even the title of the book. Now, those of you, listen to the title of her book, The Stroke Diva Fabulous. Now, again, folks usually don't associate stroke and diva together.
Right.
So the fact that you're putting them together is a message of hope, is a message of encouragement that, okay, it happened, it is what it is, but now what you going to do about it? Are you going to sit around? Are you going to become the stroke diva, or are you going to become the stroke devil? Are you going to become the stroke diva, or are you going to become the stroke pity party attender? I mean, which is it? I mean, and there are two paths to go. It really is. And again, because I don't know, for me, I know what I talk about. Now, if it actually hits me, I would want to believe and hope to believe that I would be able to respond that way, that, you know what, I am going to move forward and not get bogged down into the pity party. But it's got to be tough because, again, I've watched it, I've seen it. I haven't lived it, but I've lived it vicariously, as I've shared with you through my aunt. And again, like the story I just shared with you with the Twilight Zone, I love to read. So if by chance my sight were gone, I mean, it would like, wow. I mean, I guess I'd have to do audiobooks, but
you keep it rolling.
Exactly. That's what you got to make a way. You have to substitute. That's the other funny thing not funny, but I'm glad about. A lot of the substitutes that I've had to put in place are really good because I love vanilla milkshakes. But now that I bought my NutriBullet and I put strawberries and blueberries and almond milk in there and put a Truvia or a Stevia or whatever in there, it really is good. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can deal with this. Yeah, I can't have my Haagen-Dazs. I can't have my vanilla milkshakes, but these smoothies are pretty good. They're not bad. And so I found cinnamon to put in coffee is even better than sugar. I don't put any sugar at all in coffee. I just sprinkle some cinnamon in there, and it's like, wow, it's great. So, like, some of the substitutes are really good, but I applaud you and those of you who are struggling with any kind of health challenge or any kind of challenge in general, and you still don't let it knock you down. Because that's the difference. That's why, I mean, if you go back to Donnie McClurkin's song, "We Fall Down, But We Get Up," there's a lot of people fall down. They don't get up. And that's by choice.
Yes. Yes. And I thank you because hearing your story, I'm inspired because, you think you have it bad, but there's always someone that, is worse off. And I hate to use the word worse, but, there's someone whose challenge is harder than yours. And so I listened to the story about your aunt, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, she wasn't supposed to be here. But we knew why she was here because that was my mother's baby sister. She was in her either late 30s or early 40s at the time, maybe mid 40s. She was young as well, and she was not supposed to be alive based on the way the accident occurred. And she was just very popular. So we had people all over the world and the country praying for her. I mean, we had friends in California. We had just about every state, somebody knew her. And when we let them know about the accident, we just asked, would you please pray for Prentice, pray for Ann, pray for Prentice, because we call her Ann. Her middle name was Ann. And we would please pray for Ann. And she pulled out, and the doctors literally told us, we don't understand why she's still here because she wasn't supposed to, based on that accident, she wasn't supposed to still be here. And she is, and she's up and functioning as well, talking, and she can write again and walk again and all that kind of stuff. But I'm definitely going to hook you two up. I'm going to text her or call her later on and say, look, I'm going to share your number with such and such. You two, give a call or email or something, because I think you two would have a fabulous conversation. I really do, in terms of your struggles of having to make a comeback.
Yes, definitely. And that's the thing, this health can just really take you out of here because being unconscious for 18 hours, it's, who does that happen to?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're like, okay.
It is an amazing thing. And I was just sharing with my wife and some other folks the other day, if I had a choice between health and wealth, I'll take the health. Because if you have your health, you could always manage and struggle and work hard to try to get the wealth. It doesn't work the other way around. Because I watched the Steve Jobs, again, that's what I was telling you about. As I get older, I begin to choke up a little bit more. I was watching there's a Netflix or a movie or a documentary on Steve Jobs. And it's called One Last Time, because in his meetings he would always tell the employees, look, one last thing. That's what he would always say when he was on stage. I have one last thing. And so they titled this One Last Time, and they chronicled his life. And by the time they got to the end of it, I was choked up again, because here's this man sitting there, you're watching him dying with pancreatic cancer or whatever it was. You see from the beginning when he's like a teenager on through his 20s, on through his 30s, the ups and downs in business. And then Apple finally really takes off with these iPods and iPads and iPhones, and then he gets ill.
Right.
And they show this interview with him and Bill Gates, how they're like friendly and talking to each other. And then one of his friends talk about the last time they were together. But by the time, because he was only like 53, I think 54, somewhere up in there.
Yeah.
Whenever he passed. And by the time we got to the end of that thing, I mean, I was sitting there with like the biggest lump in my throat. Tears started coming down. I was like, And they even talk about it and how he wasn't even well liked. Like his personality was like in and out in terms of either, you know, if he liked you, he liked you. If he didn't, he didn't. He was very tough. But by the end of that interview, you really you know what? I understood why Apple got to the way it did. But I'm saying all that again to say he was worth billions. And none of those billions could get his pancreas or whatever the other organs or whatever had gone wrong there. And so if I have the choice between wealth and health, I will take the health and try to work on getting the wealth. But it does not work the other way around. You could be a billionaire, but if some of these organs in the body go wrong, not enough money in the world will put them back.
Exactly. And that is absolutely true. If you have your health, you have everything. You really do. And like you said, it does not work the opposite way.
No, it doesn't. I've seen it. I mean, I would say you're in the Maryland area, Reginald F. Lewis, I'm sorry. Reginald was from the Baltimore area, and he wound up commandeering and putting together the largest merger ever, buyout merger, which was with Beatrice. TLC, what is that? The Tropicana orange juice and McCall Patterns and all these other companies. This was an African American male. That was the largest deal ever. Another one, he went down with like a brain tumor in his 50s, like 51, 52. Billionaire, same deal. So you could have all the money, but that money will not put the organs in your body back together again. It just won't. But I tell you, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you know, we manage it with you know, a lot of medication, meditation, same thing, medication.
That's right. They go together.
Oh my God, same thing. It's you can manage it, but you know, you can't buy your way through it, and no one else can do it for you.
That's right. It's true. Well, again, for those of you who know, we're down to the last couple. I mean, we actually ran overtime, and I'm okay with that because this is an important message. This is important. And for those of you who have been listening, and the other thing, Kamaria, is I record this. So I'm going to send it out through all my social sites. I'll send you the MP3 link, and you can do whatever you choose with it. But I want folks to listen to this. I'll have it on my site that you can download it or listen to it. But again, my interview last week was very inspirational. You're extremely inspirational as well. It can be done, and you need people. You need yourself to be able to get in mode. For me, and it sounds like for you as well, we recognize the existence and the need for God, because I know everybody's not there, so I don't try to force that on anybody. I can share with you what I believe, but
right.
You believe what you believe. But for me, that's God, all right? And so we need that presence and everything, because for me, just listening to that story, that's all that was, is that's God. That's just a testament to what God can do. And it's kind of like they say in church, what he can do for others, he'll do for you. I'm sitting there listening to your story and saying, well, if he can do that for Kamaria, he can do that for me. And I'm sure there are others listening that are saying the same thing. And that's why I was so glad to have you on the air. And I'm going to make sure we reshare the interview. This for those who didn't want to rise early with us. They still have the opportunity. I
was nervous. I set the alarm like at 5 a.m. I'm like,
I know.
I went to bed at 2. I was like, I cannot mess up. I'm nervous. I'm like, I can't go to sleep.
And, you know, I've been doing this 13 years, but Friday nights for me are just like that, the same way. For 13 years, the show has been on one time slot or another, but the bulk of it has been on this time slot. And for Friday nights, it's the same way, because you don't want to oversleep. I have guests scheduled. I have to make sure I get here and all the equipment is working and all that. So my alarm goes off at 4:20 on Saturday mornings. It goes off at 4:20. I hit the snooze button and then give me another 10 minutes and I'm up at 4:30 and then I'm up and rolling. But I'm the same way. Like, that fear of oversleeping is always there. And it's only happened to me, I think, maybe twice out of the 13 years. And it's not good. So I'm on pins and needles. Is the guest going to call in? Is this going to happen? So when it does click, I'm thrilled.
Oh, my God, yes. I'm like, okay. And then I talked to you before we got started, and so I felt totally comfortable because you have done that for me. And so I really, really, really appreciate you having me on the show and listening, because a lot of people, you know, they hear the story, but they don't actually listen. And for you to say, you know, it's really affected you that way really does my heart good, because you actually listen and you're asking your listeners, you know, dial in, listen to the tape.
Right.
You know, you want people, sometimes you feel invisible.
Right.
When you have a challenge like this.
Right.
And all you want is someone to listen. And you have done that for me, and I'm so glad that you've shared your story as well. That is amazing because you've gone through it with someone.
Yes.
Someone people you love.
That's right. So I thank you for those. We're going to be on the lookout for the Stroke Diva Fabulous. She said it's going to be an ebook. I already have my Kindle, so that's going to be easy for me to download. So we're looking for it. And her blog, she has on her sites as well. Like I said, I came across Kamaria on About Me. That's another social media site, about.me. That's a wonderful site that you can put your resume and put your bio and everything on there, and then you can kind of talk with each other and compliment each other and email each other, and you see each other's sites. Wonderful section as well in terms of social media. But you can get to her, like she said, it is the Talk Shoe Radio. So it's http www.talkshoe, just like you wear on your feet, SHOE.com. Right. And then I see you have /TC/115759. I'm assuming that's like a show. That's an episode of the show. How do they get, let's put it this way. How do they get to you? How do they get to you? The easiest way to get to you online?
Actually, email or just like Facebook or Twitter. And actually, I just learned about me. I just learned about that a couple weeks ago. Maybe like 2 weeks ago, I think. But so, to do Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, I'm on all of those social sites, and so people can reach me on any of those. And if you want to listen to a show, the shows are archived. And so the 115759 is, I can remember that, but not my phone number.
Hey, it works.
Right.
It works. So the 115759. There you go. I got
that down.
For you number people out there, 115759. Now, all right. Now, in Maryland, I know they have the Maryland State Lottery, because I know in New Jersey they have it. They have New Jersey State Lottery. So for those of you who are into pick threes and pick sixes and all that, 115759. I might have to go ahead and put my number in myself. But
I think I need to do that too.
But I have enjoyed speaking with you this morning. I am inspired and encouraged because, like I said, there are times, like in the Bible where it says David has to encourage himself. There are times we have to encourage ourselves. And you, just listening to you this morning has helped encourage me to encourage myself.
That is great. And, Mark, let me just, because I'm not giving people my email.
Okay, there you go.
Kamaria Richmond at yahoo.com.
Okay, so that's Kamaria, that's Kamaria, enrichment, all one phrase?
All one.
All together, Kamaria enrichment at yahoo.com. I advise you and encourage you to get in touch with her. Again, Kamaria, I'll always remember your name because, like I said, the last four is my oldest daughter named Aria. So it's
beautiful.
Com in front of it. So I'll always remember your name, Kamaria enrichment at yahoo.com. Email her, let her know you heard her on the show, and then she can let you know when the book will be coming out and launching. But I'm going to have her, when it launches, she's coming back. Okay.
Oh, Mark, let me say that again. So it's for my email. It's Kamaria Richmond, Richmond.
Oh, Richmond. I'm sorry, like the city.
Right.
Like your last name, Kamaria. I'm sorry, I thought you said Kamaria enrichment because I'm so inspired and enriched. I'm thinking that's what. So she said Kamaria Richmond, her last name. There you go. So let's do that again. Kamaria Richmond, like the city in Virginia. Richmond, Kamaria Richmond at yahoo.com. Email her. Those of you who are listening, she'll welcome your email. Let her know you heard her on the show. If my mother's listening and you want to email her mom, email her. Princess, I don't know if you're up yet, but if you're listening to the interview on archive or tape, email. I'm definitely going to connect you all together. Anyone else out there listening that just want to send Kamaria an email and let her know that you heard her here on the show, again, it's Kamaria Richmond at yahoo.com. Kamaria, I told you my routine on Saturday mornings. I usually do this real early and go back home and jump back into bed. So if you want to jump back in and take a nap, I understand.
That's what I'll do.
All right. You have a wonderfully blessed day. I have enjoyed speaking with you this morning.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I really have. This has been a blessing. Thank you.
All right. Take care now.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.